Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm in such a good mood. It's Christmas. Christmas is coming up, so I am happy. I'm happy. I really am. I am. So, and also I'm really excited for today's video. So, hint in the title, I'm going to be doing a prosthetic that is made out of latex but also mixed with some flour for me to be able to mould it and get large lumps of shapes and stuff like that onto the cast that I'm using, rather than just the latex itself, which is quite runny on its own and you can't really build up much mass with it. So I'm going to be doing that, but I'm also going to be showing you how to pre-paint a prosthetic. So obviously with latex prosthetics, when you're doing it freehand, there's not much detail you can get with it, but you still can get some amazing results. They might not necessarily be movie quality, usually, even if you're using latex, even though you usually use silicone in films. Today, when you use latex on films, you would always usually have a sculpture, then a mould, and then a cast, because using clay and tools, it just gives you that precision, the skin texture, all the wrinkles, the hyperrealism that you need, which is what some of you may have seen from my Instagram. There's some prosthetics that I did there on university which were mould and casted ones, and the ones that I did with Robert, they were mould and casted ones, and you could see all the detailing and the realism in them. However, latex and flour and maybe latex and tissue is an amazing way for you to start out with prosthetics, and to be fair, it's quite fun as well. It's quite relaxing, you can sit and do it at home. I mean, I have gone through a lot of hard work to make this prosthetic, which you guys in a bit are going to see the full process. So you go over to VoiceOver Misha, where I will show you from start to finish how I did this prosthetic. So from the cast itself, like what I used, and then how I built the sculpture up with the latex and the flour, and then at the end also how I pre-painted. I wanted to show you how to pre-paint because it is essentially just the same as doing it on your face, except there's just a few tips there to give you advice in terms of when it comes to applying something that's pre-painted. And also, obviously, it depends on the material you're using, because then it changes the type of paints that you're using. So hopefully this video is quite educational for you guys, but also I absolutely love the design that I've come up with. I am hoping that it's going to be out on Christmas. If not, I hope you guys had a wonderful Christmas. I have been working long hours to try and get this out for you guys, but if I don't get it out for Christmas, I hope you had a wonderful Christmas. If I do, again, just have a wonderful Christmas. Before we get into the video, allow me to introduce myself. If you don't know already who I am, my name is Misha and I am a beauty and special effects makeup artist, and on this channel I hope to hopefully educate, inspire and entertain you guys on the world that is all makeup. So if you like the video by the end of this video, hit that subscribe button, but also hit that like button if you enjoyed it. It just lets me know if you guys are enjoying the content that I am delivering to you. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Okay, so as you can see here, I'm starting to get everything ready to make the prosthetic. So in order to get the right amount of flour to liquid latex, which is what I'm using here, currently I am putting flour into a cup. So what I end up doing is I actually put 1 full cup to 2 parts of 2 cups of full latex. So 2 full cups of latex and 1 full cup of flour, and this in terms of ratio is 2 to 1, and obviously there ends up being more liquid latex to the flour. Of course, if you feel like you need to get more out of it, if you feel that you need to add more flour, feel free to add more flour to thicken it up. If you need it more watery, add more liquid latex to make it more watery. A lot of this is eyeballing in terms of mixing flour and liquid latex together for prosthetics, just because there's no set thing. And once I've built the mass, I use thinner mix ratio to do detailing or smoothing, so on and so forth. But as you can see here, I am mixing the flour and the liquid latex. You want to make sure you get this nice and mixed as much as possible. I did find it was a bit lumpy, but as I say, at this stage you shouldn't be too concerned about that, because this is literally just getting the basic shapes in where you want them, which you will see me do in a bit. However, later on your mixes want to be more runny, so then you can get a smoother, more sleek finish on the top layer of your prosthetic. So here I'm just starting to put in the shapes that I want. I'm not going in with too much latex at this very particular point. I'm just literally laying it on where I want the placement to be, and then afterwards in a second I will be going in with a thicker amount. And here I'm just using a silicone sculpting tool, which is what I would usually use on clay. However, because the liquid latex is thick and mixed with the flour, you can use tools such as this to get shapes or indents in your prosthetics. And as mentioned previously, here now you can see me really dumping that that flour and latex mixture onto my cast. The cast that I've got here is of a model that I live casted at university. However, she has got very similar face shape to me and sizing, so on and so forth, so I knew it would be an okay cast to work on. The reason why I work on a plaster cast with latex is because plaster actually absorbs all of the moisture out of the latex, so that helps the liquid latex to dry quicker. Of course, you can use hair dryers, which I do afterwards, to help speed the drying process. However, that'll mainly be on the top surface, whereas the back side of the prosthetic, which is actually touching the plaster cast, will struggle to dry. However, because plaster absorbs all moisture, this will help the whole latex flour ratio to dry quickly through to the very bottom and to the core of where all the latex is. Again, just using a silicone sculpting tool to get the shapes and the bone structure that I want on the prosthetic, not worrying too much about smoothness, more about placement and mass. Just going back to the plaster cast and how important that is in regards for latex prosthetics. If you were to use, say, a resin mould or a resin cast of someone's face, it is fine. However, again, you will find it will take a lot longer to dry. So plaster is a cheap alternative which works perfectly with latex. You can use plaster for silicones as well. However, I do prefer to use resins because silicone is actually it cures itself. It doesn't need air to cure because you're mixing A and a B together. However, liquid latex does require air and the moisture out of the latex to evaporate in order for it to set and dry solid. So here I'm just using a bit of loose pure liquid latex, and I'm using it with my finger, and I'm just smoothing out some areas that I feel are really too bumpy. As much as I'm not worrying about smoothness at this point, you don't want too many bumps. If you can avoid as much as possible at the early stages, it basically gives you less work when it comes to the final smoothing stages, because you've prepped that surface and the structure well. When doing this, if your fingers get too latexy, so if the latex dries on your finger, because obviously your hands have heat, be sure to peel that off your finger and then start again with a fresh clean finger. Otherwise the dry latex on your finger will then get stuck to the latex that is on the prosthetic, which may cause some problems for you. So just a little tip there to help prevent any issues. You want to make sure that you are not pressing too hard. If you press too hard with the latex underneath not being completely set, you may distort the shape that you've created and the form that you've created. So it's just simply to try and get a smoother surface. You will probably see my Cocker Spaniel's face in the background. Every time I'm working, he always likes to be around. Okay, so now this is the important part. I am using just a regular old piece of cardboard from a cardboard box. And here I'm taking the time to really think about where I'm positioning these pieces of card to represent the shape that I want and the height. So again, we're just focusing on the form of the prosthetic. The reason why I'm using card is because it would be almost impossible to create this height with just liquid latex and flour. You probably will be able to do it, but you would be there for days, maybe weeks, waiting for each section and each layer to dry to build that mass. So by using card, you're able to quickly create that mass and the shape, whilst also offering an extra support in the center of the liquid latex. So here I'm getting some really thick liquid latex to initially grip to that card, to the prosthetic. At this point, I'm not worrying about smoothness, not worried about detailing. I am not worrying about form, as long as it doesn't distort the form I've already created, just because I'm wanting to just get that initial cure between the card and the liquid latex to set up and be secure. The reason why I'm using thick, partly cured liquid latex, which is what was in my mix from earlier, it's just set up slightly more, is because it will allow the liquid latex to dry even more quicker, which is what you want when you've got a piece of card hanging off the edge of your prosthetic. It will also offer a stronger, more resilient grip. You may find that because this liquid latex is slightly cured, you would get lumps of dry bits. If you do, just quickly take that off and then go back in with a more fresh section. Then to secure it even more, going over that thick liquid latex with clear liquid latex, just to offer and add that extra surface that the card can cling to. So here now I'm mixing another batch of liquid latex. We're on a different day now. I wanted to give that card time to definitely set, because the last thing you want to do is to basically go in messing around too soon and then it break off. So as you can see, this mixture is a lot more runnier. This is to basically cover the surface area quicker and also smooth out a bit more. So the ratio that I actually did here was probably about 1 part flour to 3 parts of liquid latex, but again, you can just eyeball this. But the tip with this mix that I'm doing here is to try and mix it as much as possible to make sure it is as smooth as possible, so that the flour is not clumped into bits. You will still find some clumping because this is simply just what happens. However, you want this to try and be as smooth as physically possible. And now I'm just showing here me putting some base liquid and flour, liquid latex and flour onto the next piece of card that I have pre-cut into a shape. And I'm smearing that onto the edge so that this liquid latex that's on the edge of the card can grip to the liquid latex that is on the actual face at this current time. Here, just positioning where I want it, making sure everything is in the right place, and I just want to make sure that the card is touching the plaster cast in as many places as possible. If you have the card touching the surface area in more places rather than less, it literally will help that secure. It adds that extra firm surface area which will help the card to stick on and stay more firmly. So here I've got the card in place, and now I'm starting the more intricate detailing areas. I'm creating these sort of type of ridges that come off the face onto the spouts that are on the prosthetic section, the head section. So I'm just slowly using that thick latex again to build that form up and try and smooth it out with like a popsicle stick again. Obviously at this point smoothing isn't a major issue, however, the smoother you get it as soon as possible, the better. Again, just to smooth out, using some pure liquid latex with my finger and gently moving the thicker latex around to get the shape that I want and also smooth it out. By putting liquid latex on your finger, it also stops the liquid latex that is on the prosthetic sticking to your finger when you're trying to move the liquid latex around to get the shape that you want. So now I want to just coat the pieces of card in liquid latex, even if it's just a thin coat, simply because makeup will go on to card differently than it will liquid latex. So if you was to put a paint on a piece of card, it probably come out a different colour than it would do on liquid latex, because card is a surface that will absorb paints. However, liquid latex, it tends to lie on the surface because it's a rubber. So if I was to go in and paint onto the card, it would come out darker, and on the liquid latex it usually would stay to its true colour. As you can see here, I'm just building up more form, more depth around the mouth teeth area. I felt like it wasn't standing out enough and it wasn't clear enough that that was a ridge of skin, and that should be recessed where the mouth is, so I decided to go in with a bit more whilst also smoothing it out. By using a popsicle stick, it's a really good technique to smear, a bit like when you're icing a cake. As you can see, I'm smearing over the surfaces, so wherever there is a recess in the liquid latex prosthetic, the new wet liquid latex will be filled in to those gaps by smearing, because the popsicle stick will smooth and lie over the top section, like the bumps and stuff, so wherever there are dips, the fresh liquid latex will end up falling into those dips if you smear with the popsicle stick. So here I'm just creating even more detail. I'm creating like this ridging effect with bumps, because again I want this look to be really just like sharp and whimsical and give the illusion of coldness. And to me, coldness is sharpness, is precision, but also the detailing will help to bring this prosthetic to life and also make your paint job even more interesting. And here you'll see I'm just filling in some gaps where I felt like it slooped down. I didn't want it to sloop down as much, so I'm just literally getting more liquid latex and filling in those spaces where I don't want it to go down as much and I want it to come higher. This is down to just preference and my design and what I wanted to go off, but this just shows that the layers and layers of latex, you can actually end up sculpting with it just like you would do with clay. So here you can see the prosthetic itself is nearly dried. I've actually added more ridges but going the sideways, so again sticking with that cold, sharp, creaturey, whimsical sort of effect for this particular Ice Queen character. And here I'm literally just whacking on that liquid latex to fill any gaps, but also to cover more of that exposed raw card. I do tend to jump back and two on the prosthetics, especially towards the end where the detailing is, because if I see something I just want to correct it there and then, so then I don't forget to do that later on. A lot of people are different. Some people work step by step, like all written out. However, at the start I tend to do that, but towards the end, like I just said, the detailing work is sort of freehand and I just do it as I see it and when it needs correcting. Now the teeth I've actually used out of regular nail tips. I've cut them down to the size that I wanted and into the shape that I wanted and glued them into place on top of the liquid latex and with the liquid latex. So here I'm coming to the end. I just have to cover some of the card, but then what I will do once I've finished and feel like the sculpting section of the prosthetic is done, I will literally set it aside and let it dry. It's so important to make sure your prosthetic is completely dry so that you don't get any tearing or weak spots in your prosthetic. So here I started to paint the prosthetic. I'm using the Fantasy FX by Mehron. This is like the electric blue, and a regular flat makeup brush, and I'm literally getting this colour on as a base layer. Now the reason why I'm pre-painting is because when you are applying new prosthetics like this, it can be very time consuming. So a tip to you guys is when you can pre-paint your prosthetics, do. It saves so much time, it'll save you back. It also allows you to really focus on that paint job rather than worrying about time so much because you've pre-done most of the work. So as you can see here, I'm stippling on that face paint. So this Mehron face paint it's really good. It's a mix between cream and like a water activated face paint. So it's a really good combination, and I felt like it did really well for this prosthetic. At the start I was actually putting the cream makeup into the brush, however I should have known this already, the brush absorbs the cream makeup very quickly, so rather than it going onto the prosthetic, it just simply goes deeper and deeper into the brush. So that is why I resulted to actually squeezing the face paint onto the prosthetic itself where I wanted to paint it, and then stippling with my flat makeup brush to cover the full surface. This not only made it a lot quicker, it also, most importantly, helped reduce product loss, because we don't want that product in that brush, we want that product on the prosthetic itself. So now I'm going in to sort of like contour my prosthetic, and I'm doing this by doing a mix of white and the same blue that I use for the base, and I'm just going over with a smaller makeup brush, highlighting any high points of the face and any ridges that are on the face as well. So this is where it really will bring out your detailing work, and it's so important to do this step because one, it makes your makeup pop, but also you don't want to work hours and hours putting detailing work in, and then when the photos are taken or the videos being recorded, they just disappear because they've not been worked on. But as you will see here, by putting these highlights on, it's really bringing out all that detailing work that I've spent time to put in there. So please make sure you do some form of step that is close to this. It doesn't take very long. As you can see, I'm just simply stippling it on, and then any large areas such as where the brow bone is and the cheekbone was, I just gently blended that out with a softer brush. So now I'm going in with the other type of values. So we've just done the light values, now we're going to do the dark values, so the shadowing basically. So I'm going in with the dark navy Snazzaroo face paint, and I initially put that in with a smaller brush, but then go in with a clean, bigger, fluffier brush to soften and blend it out. The reason why I do this is because the smaller brush will have too much pigment on it and it will blend down too much, whereas if you have a nice clean fluffy brush, it will flawlessly blend that darker colour out whilst also not adding more pigment. I'm basically placing the dark shadows wherever naturally there would be dark shadows. So that was in the recess areas and any holes, anywhere that I feel that it naturally looks good or is pleasing to the eye, I basically put those shadows. I'd like to also apologise for the lighting in this video. It is slightly orange. I was working on this prosthetic for days and days, so I was mainly doing this in my living room where I don't usually work. I usually work in film in my office. However, just because it's a long project and I was doing it for hours on end in between other jobs, I basically thought, right, I'm going to take it in my living room and work on it there whilst I'm watching some TV. But again, that is the amazing thing about pre-painting or making any prosthetics. You can literally just get the right setup, cover your table or whatever you've got, get your kit out and just sit there and watch TV, you know, binge watch Netflix series and just work on these amazing pieces of art. Whereas if I didn't pre-paint this, I would have had to sit for probably about 8 hours in front of the camera to paint and apply it. As much as that doesn't bother me because I still love applying and painting prosthetics directly on the skin, by pre-painting it just allows you that flexibility. So here I'm going in with a KRYOLAN Pro Cream palette, and I went in with like this navy burnt umber red, and I'm putting that in the recess area where the mouth is and around the teeth. It's so important to put this colour around the teeth because it's so easy, especially under camera light, for the teeth to be lost and just look like a white line. And also I go in with a black paint in a bit to add even more depth to those teeth because again, you don't want them to be lost within the prosthetic. As you can see, I'm using a small fine detailing brush, which is an actual paintbrush, just to get in between those tiny gaps. Using that smaller brush to touch up any more areas that I feel need touching up on the rest of the prosthetic, really enhancing those sharp shadows where I feel that they need enhancing. So this is coming to the end of this tutorial, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. This is part 1 of 2. I hope that you join me on the second half where I will be applying and showing you how to finish this amazing prosthetic off, and I hope to see you then, guys. Bye!